The stock markets are crashing, crypto has crashed, but the housing market seems to be stronger than ever. And it might leave you wishing you'd invested in property, as you'd certainly have made an insane return over the past few years. Today, I want to look at where the housing market is going, if a crash is on the way, and discuss whether it's a good time to buy a property. I know this is particularly pressing for me at the moment as I'm looking to buy a property. I sold before they rose, and I'm looking to buy when they're higher than ever, which isn't fantastic.
That was stupid.
REITs or real estate investment trusts are also a really interesting option at the moment. I'll have a video coming on them soon, so let me know if you'd like to see that, and do subscribe if you haven't already. So where is the housing market right now? According to Rightmove, the average asking price for mortgages across Britain hit $368,614 last month, a fifth consecutive record reading. A report by the National Association of Estate Agents showed that 38% of homes sold for more than their original asking price, which is up 20% in 2 months. Just for some context, in November 2020, just 10% of properties sold over ask. The study also found there was a 115% chance higher likelihood of a sale compared to the long-term average over the same period of 2012 to 2021. Perhaps more concerningly, estate agents saw a 52% reduction in the properties available for sale across their average. Properties for sale still remain low, with most branches having under 20 properties available for sale. The weird thing is here, stats and figures sound great, but in reality, until you actually go house shopping, you don't really understand the scale of the problem. I've spent the last 6 months looking for a property, and there's very little that represents good value. I've experienced mixed opinions even from the people selling houses. Of course, the majority will say, houses are going fast, you better snap them up quick. But I actually had one woman over the weekend say to me, which was quite refreshing, you should wait for property prices to cool off. But in general, the impression I've gotten from most estate agents is they don't want to know you. They've not got the properties to sell, there's 5+ people after every property ready to just snap things up and pay over ask. Of course, they're your best friend when they can't sell houses. Everyone always tells me, and it's a common known fact, that you pay a premium for new builds, but weirdly, the new builds seem to be the only thing that slightly represents better value, at least from my searches. The council tax is higher, and most of the time you have to pay a maintenance charge for the estate, but in general they aren't going for 50,000 over ask. But the people who are really going to be feeling it at the moment are first-time buyers. Young people face a huge barrier when buying a house, ignoring the current craziness of the market. The more important factor here is how house prices compare to the average UK salary. And this is why our generation is being branded Generation Rent. These two charts show the average home cost was around 2 to 4 times the average person's salary in 1997. Now compare that to 2021, the difference is quite staggering. Importantly here though, we do need to consider that the base interest rate set by the Bank of England in 1997 was 7.25%, whereas in 2021 it was just 0.25%, which a lot of people tend to forget about. A more accurate comparison though is this chart, which shows the percentage that mortgage payments make up of take-home pay. In 1997, it was around 20%, and it's been as high as 50% in 2007, which is similar to the position we're in now. A detailed breakdown by Nationwide showed the disparity of different job types. Corporate managers and directors remained at around 20% of their salary on average, but other sectors like skilled trades and care professionals found that theirs was at a whopping 46% of their monthly salary. Sure, it's obviously going to be better the more you earn, but we really shouldn't be in a position where our skilled trades and people looking after the most vulnerable are having to spend nearly half their wage on their mortgage payments. And that's before council tax, increasing energy costs, and your food bills. Throw in the prospect of 3% interest rates by Christmas, and that affordability could become even trickier. But to understand the direction of the market, we first need to look at how we got here. There's a few factors that have contributed to the state that we're in now, and combined they pushed up the prices of houses quite rapidly. The first was a stamp duty holiday in July 2020, which offered buyers a saving on up to £15,000 on the stamp duty when they purchased a property, which ended in June 2021. This acted as a form of stimulus, but ironically, it actually increased house prices by £15,409.
Something doesn't add up.
Speaking of lockdown, the other thing it made people realise was they needed more space, or they wanted to move to the countryside. This created a nationwide exodus of people realising they didn't need to be working in central London. Expensive prices, commuting, who needs that when you can work from home? Now, I've definitely noticed that. I've been to new developments where nearly every property has been sold to someone from London, and I'm near Wales. And we're not talking about luxury countryside, we're talking about quite standard new builds. People also seem to have a very odd amount of cash available. Nearly every agent I've spoken to has kind of expected me to be a cash buyer. Now, I know some people say I look like Macaulay Culkin, but I'm definitely not Richie Rich with a briefcase with 500k cash inside. But there is actually a lot of cash available, which has made it easier to buy houses. And that's in the way of low interest rates. Rates were as low as 0.25, which is pretty crazy, almost into negative numbers. This made it cheaper for people to borrow money and in turn pay more for houses. This always surprises me because you would presume with lockdown, job losses, rising costs, people would have less money to spend, but they actually have more money to spend, or a few select people anyway. Houses have also become more expensive to build. Supply chain issues, material costs have gone up astronomically, and it's been harder to find and get workers. A lot of people have been understandably sick, and with everyone working from home, things have moved at a lot slower pace. And this is where I feel the problem has come from more than anything, and that's supply versus demand. Need for new houses comes when the population growth leads to new households forming. There's a backlog of people currently needing and living in unsuitable accommodation, and affordability pressures prevent people from accessing the houses they need. According to one estimate commissioned by the National Housing Federation, the NHF, around 340,000 new homes need to be supplied in England each year, of which 145,000 should be affordable. New housing supply is currently lower than the government's ambition of 300,000 new homes per year. 216,000 new homes were supplied in 2021. This is lower than the 243,000 new homes supplied in the previous year, in part because of disruption to house building caused by COVID-19 in early 2020. But put simply, there's just not enough suitable houses being built for people, which has really amplified the problem. So what could stop the problem? The thing that will really fix, slow, or even crash the market, whichever way you want to phrase it, is the supply increasing and the demand decreasing, coupled with people not being able to afford to borrow quite as much. The cost of everything has reached a tipping point. Inflation has soared everything out of proportion, and people are really starting to feel it. Stocks and crypto markets have been crashing, which will make people feel less confident in spending money, and they'll be pulling back. There's a real cost of living crisis which everyone is being affected by. While the housing market may feel like 2007, it's a long way from it. There's far less risky borrowing and overlending, and the markets are in a much stronger position. Sadly, right now, the market does hold all the cards. Hopefully, with a combination of more houses being built and everyone being a bit tighter on the purse strings, it should help prices ease off. I certainly think the rise will slow or come to a halt in the next few years. But what could not stop it? The EY Item Club, an economic forecasting group, took a more optimistic view of the housing market's likely fortunes. It predicted that house prices would enjoy a continued growth, with a crash unlikely, and estimated that the typical home would, at the end of this year, be worth 52,000 more than it was before the start of coronavirus. The group, which bases its figures on the Treasury's model, said that while the rate of house prices growth was likely to slow as a result of stretched affordability, rising interest rates and falling household incomes, other factors like shortages of homes for sale, low unemployment, and the unequal effects of the cost of living pressures would stop prices from falling. The other thing we do have to consider here, that yes, interest rates are rising, but it also makes it more attractive to banks to actually lend out money, because they'll make more money from doing so. So it could be a double-edged sword. Speaking of sword, I want to discuss whether it's actually a good time to buy, and mention an analogy I came up with over 10 years ago, because I think it actually applies here. I used to play a video game called RuneScape, but on that game there was a sword, introducing the Bandos God Sword. Now you'd buy the item, kill some monsters and generate some gold, say 200,000 gold per hour. But this game actually has its own stock market of sorts called the Grand Exchange. The price of the sword would actually change depending on what a player was willing to pay for it. On one day it might be 20 million, the next 18 and the next 16. Heck, it might even go upwards. So say for example, I bought it and the price dropped 2 million. That's 10 times more than what I was able to make. I'd end up worrying that it was a wrong decision, selling it back and hoping not to lose money. Now once I did this a few times, I realized I was in the wrong mindset. Buying it to make money was wrong. I should buy the sword because I really enjoyed using it. And once I've got it, if I happen to make money, I make money. And I'll only get rid of it when I don't need it anymore. See where I'm going with this? A house might look like an investment, and I'm sure if you're like me, it's hard to get your head around thinking in this way because we constantly want to make money. But actually, you need somewhere to live. Unless you're in a position to stay at home and save, then that might be a good option for a few years. But if you need a house, your option otherwise is to rent, which again is very expensive now. So you actually need to scrap the word house and use the word home. You're buying a home to live in. Enjoy and improve your quality of life. If the market dips, so what? If the market goes up, great. But buy something you enjoy living in, can live in affordably and comfortably. And forget about it being an investment. Sure, it'd be nice if one day it goes up and you can buy a larger house or pass it on to the kids when you sell it or make money. But realistically, no one knows the future. Researching this has given me some reassurance about what I want to do going forward and the mindset that I need to adopt. And hopefully it's done the same for you. But before you go, if you want to see why the stock market crashing is actually a good thing, I'd recommend you check out this video right here, and I'll see you over there. 'Cause I just wanna see the light.